didn't put it in the presentation, and Sean's fault that it's not in there. There is a level of education that has to happen. We have to go educate employees in this town what this is. And we'll answer a lot of those questions that you're asking. We understand that. But it's a commitment we're willing to make, and hopefully it's a commitment you're willing to make as well. Education in this process is very important. Communication is so important. It's just will never get off the ground.
You haven't touched on the retirees, though.
Steve, excuse me. Mel?
Just a kind of a comment question, but this issue has been going around the school committee email listserv, where the school committee members from the town, and health insurance is always a big issue. And a number of the towns that have switched over to the GIC, and I'm not saying I recommend this, but seeing the substantial number in terms of the savings, a number of the towns have decided to pay a little bit higher percentage on the premium side and reducing the premium side that the employees pay. I know we're 70-30 right now. I know one town went to 90-10. Again, I'm not recommending that, but seeing these savings, I think one thing I'd like to see us look into is if we did up, if that was something that happened, how much would the savings be at that point? Again, not recommending it, but because I think that that's one of the issues that has come across is if we went to GIC, we may like to pay less on
Steve, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
No, as far as how many retirees do we have participating now in this? I mean, we're just talking about active employees right now with this number, but do we know how many retirees are approximately? Top of my head, no. Well, what's our overall cost for health insurance for our retirees?
Off the top of my head, I'll say about 60,000 retirees per month.
Per month.
Per month.
And some of those retirees are eligible for Medicare,
Right.
and
But are not forced onto it.
they're not forced onto it under the GIC, they would be,
Correct.
which would be an additional savings. Okay, we move on to the next subject. Yes, I'm sorry.
Terry, I guess I have a question before we get off the subject. It seems to me that in sitting in meetings for the last 2 years, GIC is not a new item, and we had the opportunity to make this a successful opportunity for the town of North Reading, and yet the opportunity has come and gone. So I wonder if we're going to evaluate what steps we took, what steps we have to take. It seems to me that there's either a top-down approach or a bottoms-up, and perhaps we took a top-down and we need to do the bottoms-up, which is we say that the teachers didn't approve. I would argue, were the teachers ever brought into a group setting and explained all these things, and all the other town employees, have all those steps
I guess
been taken?
the MTA, and not to get, but the MTA basically is, as Sean said, made that decision for the teachers.
Deanna, Mr. Beliconis has had several meetings. Let him explain.
The process that Selectman Delaney pointed out requires that there be a negotiation that takes place. And negotiation also requires, as Selectman Delaney pointed out, that there has to be an agreement. So as part of that negotiation, if you're unable to reach terms, the plan cannot move forward. As part of the negotiation group, the town is obligated to negotiate with a group called the Public Employee Committee, which is the PEC, which consists of one representative from each of the unions, and there are a total of 13 municipal and school labor unions, together with a representative of the retirees. Each of those groups has the opportunity to bring along their business agent. So we have a negotiation where upwards there are 20-plus people that are present for a negotiation session. I can only say from experience that it is extremely difficult to negotiate anything to agreement when you have 20 or 21 people all having a say and voice in what's happening. That's the structure that we've inherited from the Commonwealth. That's the Commonwealth's requirement. The wisdom of the legislature in terms of cities and towns need to go through this process to adopt the GIC. The reality is the smaller communities that don't have the in-house staff, such as North Reading, put this thing together, are really limited and handicapped by their ability to move forward. The larger cities, which don't necessarily need the GIC because they can self-insure and they have staff, they have the staff, but they don't have the need. So there's a real divide between the GIC and its applicability to a community like North Reading, that the amount of effort and negotiation that's required will basically mean that that's the only thing that we really accomplish is that negotiation process. And I can tell you that it's quite lengthy. We did meet, we did have presentations that were made, there were financial presentations that were made, similar to what Selectman Delaney had put forth here this evening, and the town was unsuccessful in reaching an agreement.
Yes.
I just
So-
wanted to make a comment in the question, part of your statement. In the case of the teachers union, can this vote of the GIC, the successful approval of GIC, be a term and condition of the upcoming teachers' contract negotiations?
No, well, I think, first of all, it's mentioned the teachers. The teachers were mentioned primarily because if they don't agree, if everyone else agreed, it's still lost, but no one has agreed to it, okay? I mean, that's where we're at this point.
To address your question, the law requires there's something that's called coalition bargaining, which again is the 14 representatives plus the business agents. That is the only method for adopting the GIC. So you could have one organization that decided this is a great idea. It doesn't work. So you can't negotiate it individually. But yet the coalition of bargaining only applies to GIC. So it's really the only way, unless there's a change in the legislation.
All right, saw a hand over here on the right, and then gentleman over on the left. Go ahead.
I'm curious, as an employee in the past, I've been able to present new health insurance to us, and you just simple math, if I pick the current plan my driving has as an individual and compared it to the hardest number, which is going to be the most comparable, for a single person, that's like a $1,300 raise a year. Even if they went to the doctor 10 times, it's $5 or $10, $100. So maybe it's 12. I can't imagine all the employees in North Reading would pass on a, that's a raise.
So we,
I agree.
Was that presented to the employees or the teachers?
I
Like,
can't get into the detail of the negotiations that took place, and I would be happy to speak with you offline if you care to. We can get into that type of discussion, but in a public forum, I feel it's appropriate.
Gentleman in the back corner. Yes.
My understanding is that towns are in a good position in the state when it comes to this issue.
Yes.
Am I correct in understanding the state can tell the employees that they're going to be doing the GIC without state?
It's all the state office.
It's all the state
It's all the
office.
state offices, the GIC, and they monkey with the benefits annually.
Without any
Expect-
say, right?
Without
Yeah,
any
without
say.
any say.
You see, well, there's a group insurance commission which has employee representation, but not a weighted vote. The weighted vote is outweighted. You
The
know.
state can't mandate the town of North Reading, so.
No.
And this is again a case
Right,
of the
set up.
legislature,
Inching closely to the.
inching close, but failing to provide the municipalities with enough authority to make a change. Now, the union bloc rules Massachusetts. Gentleman on the left.
Outside of the negotiations themselves, your education scale provided them actually for this other period of time, so we have long understanding what the end of that conversational atmosphere.
Yes, Mr. Belatonis.
This is actually a good question. We separate from this public employee committee, we have a employee insurance advisory committee, which is organized under statute. And this is another group of employees that we negotiate with, where we present all of our changes on an annual basis to this group and try to seek some type of buy-in. So we do try to have an ongoing dialogue with our employees about potential changes in the market. I'm not going to say that those discussions are always successful. We invite our insurer to come in at least twice a year to make a presentation about opportunities for cost savings to the employees and to the town. There are different options that are put on the table and suggested. So those options are reviewed with the insurance advisory committee, and whether those representatives go back to their employees we don't know, but we're obligated to present it to this formal group that's consisting of membership from each of these different labor organizations.
Okay, I'd like to move on to the next subject, to move this thing along. There's a fair amount of time required.
Next subject is what I brought up earlier. Can we afford the level services budget that we receive from our schools every year? Mr. Catalano unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. This is his part of the presentation, so I'm going to do my best to brief you on this, so I may not be 100% on the detail. But why did we focus on the school budgets? Well, there's several reasons. One, we believe it's 62% of the overall budget. We may not have that number 100% right, but we feel pretty comfortable that it is 62% of the overall town budget. Right now, the school contracts are up for renewal, so we thought it would be a good idea for us to look into the school budgets and the contracts to see where maybe we could provide some assistance. The big area that stuck out for us is, can we afford the salaries and benefits we offer our teachers today in the future? Can we afford those benefits that we offer in the future? And it's not just with the teachers when we look in this area, we're looking across the board. But just for this subject, we're focusing on schools. But this does not mean that the fact does not support schools. We do. I have children in the schools. I fully 100% support it. You should see the checks my wife writes out to the schools every week. We're 100% committed. But it's important that we address this issue now, because we're going to get into the data. I'll hold off on that until I get to the next slide. But I wanted to just let everyone know that a lot of this discussion is based on the 2007 benchmarking study. And Bob and Mario actually spent a lot of time going through it. So the data that we have coming forward out of the benchmark study for 2007 is based on 21 other towns and their peer groups. For FY 2007, the school budget, as you can see here, the total for the school budget, missing the total up there, but it doesn't matter. The real point in here is, if you look at the school budget for the last several years, from 2006 to 2007, it was an increase of 7.4%. And from 2007 to 2008, it only went to 3.4, but we all know what happened that year. That's when the kids went to school for 4.5 days. Then this current year that we're in now went up 7.7%. Can we really afford budgets that come in from the schools at that level? We want it. We want to support the schools, and we're trying to find a way to help you, Board of Selectmen, and help the school committee to be able to allow them to continue to submit those kinds of budgets. But we're seeing it's become very, very difficult to do that. So what we've been trying to do is break down the budget to understand it. And you look at just the salary breakdown of the total school budget. Now this is all, not just teachers, all people that are employed by the schools. In 2007, it was 78% of the school budget. Salaries in 2008 were 81, and salaries for the current year is 83% of the school budget. Now, this data isn't perfect, and we need a lot of communication with the school committee. I give Dr. Troughton a lot of credit. Mr. Venezia, he's participated in our meetings. They've come several times now, because we may not have all the facts right. So this is a work in progress, but we want to just give you a status on the discussions we're having with them, to make sure everybody understands why we're having the discussions. It's not because we don't support the teachers, we do. We like the children going to school 5 days a week, and we love the programs they're involved in this year. We want to see that continue forward. So we feel it's important that we try to find out where the biggest areas, so salaries stick out. So out of that benchmark study from 2007, you can see when you look at just the average teacher salaries against the benchmark out of the 21 towns, we're actually below the benchmark average, just slightly. So you know what, Dr. Troughton and his staff are doing, I think, an amazing job. Great quality teachers, and they're paying them at a reasonable rate. I don't think that's the issue. But when you look at it, when you combine the benefits into it, that's where it all gets very foggy for us. And we're now just starting to scratch the surface and understanding the true cost of the benefits in the middle school budget, and what we're paying, what the costs are that the teachers are getting, and then are they realistic? And it's not. Then when we start to go through this, we start looking at it for all the departments, and going back to that word realistic. Are they really realistic? Can we afford to do it? I think you guys have to take the time to explore this yourselves. As you can see here, when you combine the salaries and benefits together against the benchmarking, against the 20, we're at 44% of the total expenditure.